Hi, I'm Chad. To be totally honest with you, sometimes it is a grind to think of a new video idea every single week for the channel. And so to be honest with you, I cheated a little bit last week and I went to ChatGPT and I asked it to give me 10 different video ideas as a financial planner in Canada. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the video ideas in particular, I could not disagree more with what ChatGPT said. And as we move into the AI world and more people are going to ChatGPT or other AI software for financial advice, for legal advice, for all kinds of different things, I thought it was important to bring up that sometimes it's wrong, or at least in my opinion, it's wrong. Let's get into it. So this video is all about deaccumulation, and quite frankly, deaccumulation, or the drawing down of your assets, is somewhat unnatural, psychologically speaking. So much of my industry is built and focused around the building of assets, the accumulation stage, that lots of financial advisors kind of ignore this stage. And to me, it's probably the most important part, because getting your money out efficiently is super critical to making sure your money can last. Here is now where AI and I do not get along, because every time I've gone to any AI technology and asked about deaccumulation or withdrawal order, it always goes to the TFSA first, and I could not disagree with that more in at least 9 of every 10 cases. There's occasional cases, and I'll give an example a little bit later, where going to the TFSA first might make sense, but it's very rare or very niche at the very least. So to me, the typical order that I'm recommending is that we go to your registered assets first, meaning we start with your liras, if you have any. Not everyone has liras, RRSPs, then non-registered, and then last but not least, the TFSA. And the big kind of asterisk I throw on that recommendation is that I'm not saying never use your TFSA. What I am saying is only use your TFSA when it's a strategic advantage to you, because it is by far your biggest tax manipulation tool, and you don't want to blow that opportunity. So let's go into the rationale for why I have it in that order. So the first place I want you to go is to your lira, if you have one. And for those of you that don't know, a lira, or a locked-in retirement account, is essentially an RRSP, but with way more rules. And specifically, the rule that I don't like about liras is that it has a maximum withdrawal. Anytime the government imposes a maximum on how much money I can take from my own account, I don't like that. I'm going to want to get that money out as fast as possible. Now, depending on what province that lira is under for jurisdiction, you may be able to just shift that money into an RRSP, like I can here in Manitoba, 165. But if you're in BC, you can't shift any of it out, for example. And every province is different. Feel free to reach out if you want to know some of the rules about your province. In fact, I'll leave a link in the description below the video where I talk about it. But because there's that maximum withdrawal, we want to be getting out as much as we can, as fast as we can, so we don't get caught in a bad position. And let me tell you a story of a bad position that I saw firsthand. This story happened a number of years ago, and enough has changed in the lira rules that this wouldn't be an issue anymore. But at the time, Manitoba did not acknowledge financial hardship as a good enough reason to pull lira money beyond what your maximum was. And then, you know what, I'm saying lira, but at this point I do mean LIF, which means you're actually pulling income from that. Our industry has way too many acronyms. But this woman came to me, she had already pulled her maximum amount, and it was November, and it was in Winnipeg. And the reason she needed more money was because her furnace had broken. That is an emergency. A Winnipeg house with no furnace, that is absolutely an emergency. And the only way we could get access to her money was by doing the 50% split, which we did, and thank goodness we had access to that ability. But for me, when I look at liras, I never want to see a client in the position where they're jammed up and they can't take any more money out because of an arbitrary rule that's set by the government on a spreadsheet every January. So we drain as much out of the liras as we possibly can. That's where we start if you have a lira. From there, I switched to the RRSP, which again, if you don't have LIRAs or LIFs, this is where we would start. And the reason I start with the RRSP is control. I like control. I like controlling my withdrawals from the RRSP, or I like the idea of it, so that I'm paying less tax on aggregate. One of the biggest differences between how I approach financial planning and how AI approaches financial planning, or the average Canadian, is that I am looking at the 20, 25, or 30-year picture and saying, how do I save tax over all of that? Whereas most AI, or most people, quite frankly, look at the 1 year in front of them and they say, okay, it's 2025. How do I save taxes this year? And I get the appeal of that. That makes total sense. But if you're trading a little bit less tax now for a lot more tax over a 30-year time period, to me as a planner, that doesn't make sense. And so that's another big reason why I like to go to the RSPs early. We can do controlled small withdrawals at a reasonable tax rate, so that in later years, you're not forced to big income when it's a RIF and maybe paying higher taxes. The other part of this is it may more easily allow you to delay things like CPP and or OAS, because you can lean on those assets in the meantime. That's a conversation for another day, but those are some of the main rationale for why I go to registered assets first. I mentioned that next is non-registered, and really I don't have a rationale for why non-registered goes in between RSP and TFSA, but what I do have is a strong rationale for why I believe TFSA should be last. So by the process of elimination, non-registered kind of just gets wedged in there. The TFSA should go last, like I said earlier, because it is your strategy play. It is your tax manipulation tool, and this is where tax brackets come in and make it so important for tax planning. I am a firm believer that at the beginning of each year, you should look to see exactly where your tax brackets lie. That's provincial and federal combined. You should then take the information that you know, like how much you're getting from CPP, OAS, pensions, LIRA, RSP, and then you can look and see, okay, well, how much more do I need? Am I at the top of a tax bracket? If yes, then okay, maybe we take from the TFSA to manipulate that and make sure that we don't go into a higher bracket. If you're at the bottom of a bracket, maybe you take more from the RSP and leave that TFSA alone. It's your choice. But by protecting the TFSA, you get to maintain that choice. And for me, the most valuable thing in a financial plan is options. I hate when I see clients that are backed into a corner and they only have one option. Even if it's the right option, even if it's what I would recommend, I don't like when there's only one. I would like to much prefer to say, you can do this or this, here's the upsides, here's the downsides, whatever it is, take your pick. I recommend ABC, whatever. And that's why we protect the TFSA, because it's all about strategy. So if it's time for me to review your deaccumulation plan, there will be a link in the description down below that comes directly to me. Until next time, keep planning.